Welcome, everyone, back to the Fantasy Football Profit Podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, joined as always by Jeff Torrey. And today we're going to talk a little bit about our draft we just did, our auction draft, our first one of the year, really, our first actual one. It's a keeper league we do every year. We have two keepers in it, but we've been doing this league. This is like year 14 or 15 now in this thing. I think we started in 2009. It's been going on forever, but we've talked about all these strategies for this whole offseason the last couple of months, so we got to put them into play on Sunday night and see how we did. So like I said, we had two keepers each, so it changes some of the things you're going to do. And Jeff came in with a nice, cheap Jamar Chase and Travis Etienne. I had not as good of keepers with Debo and Calvin Ridley. I also was we can trade draft cash, so I was down draft cash. So all that, I was in a bad spot. But I think executed some draft plans pretty well and did pretty decent for what we had. I'll just say the rankings after the end of this, Jeff is ranked number one in every metric I can find. So Jeff, how did you approach this? If you're ranked, I tried ESPN, Fantasy Pros, Football Guys, all these different sites. You came number one on all of them. So what did you do to get that?
Well, what we've been talking about all year. Yeah, I think the big one is it worked really well. I will say this. It's a very up for grabs. Anyone can kind of get into the mode where they need a player and they can outbid you for them, right? So if you really fall in love with a player, it's very difficult to build a well-rounded team. Yeah. So knowing that I already had kind of a foot in wide receiver and a foot in running back, I could have went either way. And I've been promoting zero RB. And I was like, this is a perfect time to try that out. So my initial thought was, let's find out where Bijan is going to go. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't go overblown, I could easily go that route, right? And I also knew I wanted to go for QB because there was only two big names out there really left. That was Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. So right away, Bijan or Jefferson went, and I was also playing with that name, right? So if I could get one other big guy, Jefferson went for 62.
Yep.
A little too rich for my blood, and I was like, okay, there's a lot of other guys I like, so I'm going to hold off a little bit. Bijan went. He went for a ton too, and then at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to go and get one of these two QBs. So you can see me go from strategy to strategy. I'm kind of going for a deal at the moment, and when I realized that's off the table, you just have to go and get your guy, I was very aggressive. So Mahomes came up. I was very aggressive, and this is an interesting point. Me and Craig were talking about this. I was going back and forth, and we're just hammering the submit button, going one at a time. I finally get Mahomes. I feel really good about it. I paid what I needed to, but immediately I knew that I was only bidding with one other person. And I knew Craig also liked, he wanted to have a high-end QB.
Yep.
And I was wondering if you actually saw that, because as soon as that person is off the board, he has a QB, or did he just love Mahomes? But you have to know there's really only one other guy going for that strategy. Did you pick up on that?
I was watching that, and it was just me and you, so I kind of gave up at that point. I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna just get in a bidding war right now with Jeff and not do this, because I'm like, if it's only us that are willing to spend at this price for Mahomes, why would anybody else gonna go crazy for Josh Allen? We were the only ones for a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't think these guys are gonna go for quarterback too crazy. I think they're gonna miss out on this. So I'm like, all right, I'll lose this battle, but I think I can get Allen for similar price. So I waited. It was only a couple. I think I might have even nominated him. I'd have to look again and see but it maybe not. It was close after that.
Yeah.
But it was just a couple picks later, and I got Allen for $6 cheaper than you got Mahomes. So there was one other guy that jumped in for a little bit, but no one was willing to go higher. I got Allen for $25.
Yeah.
So those mock auctions we were doing on Fantasy Pros, remember we thought we were getting Allen and Mahomes for a little too cheap? It kind of worked about where we got them.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think it did. And that was really helpful. So I got my high-end QB.
Yep.
You know where you stand now, and now you know you have to go and spend that money. Yep. The only thing I will say, I like who I got. I like my depth. I like everything about it. There's some guys you're not going to be able to get. There was someone in our draft that kept way too much cash. Yeah. So when I was bidding for Olave, which I wanted him as my number 3 wide receiver, and I was like, man, if I get Olave for a decent price, like even a little over his asking, I'm going to be really happy. He had so much money, it didn't matter. Like he was going to outbid me no matter what. And so I had to give up on that. And then the The other one is A.J. Brown. I had gotten him before because he was kind of the last of a tier. And once again, we tell you not to get in bidding wars for last of a tier, but I knew with the amount of money I had left, if I didn't spend what I needed to in order to get him, there wasn't anyone that would be valued the same. I would have felt really bad about my team. So I overpaid for A.J. Brown. I missed out on Olave, but other than that, I really like where my team ended up.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's kind of how we did it. I mean, really it went down our strategy list. And you can do any of them that you want, but my first one was, all right, these top tier guys, how much are they going for? As soon as that goes, I'm going to go get my QB because now I know where I stand. Now I know I have to go heavy on wide receiver, get the guys you can. I could have been even a little more aggressive early on in the draft because now seeing like A.J. Brown, I probably could have gotten someone else if I want to. I love A.J. And then Olave, if I would have thrown him out earlier, that person that outbid me, maybe he wouldn't have caught on by then. And like as you hold on to players like that you want later on, ends up biting you more than you think. Because it was funny because JoJo, he's a wild card in every of these drafts we have, but he was throwing out. I think he was at a kid's birthday party, but he was throwing out wild like guys that were probably worth $5 or something early on, and it was very disorienting. Yeah. And everyone was kind of joking about it, but I'm like, he got the guy he wanted, and I thought it was kind of brilliant, even though I think he had a terrible draft. But like, I should have just said, "Oh, I love Olave," and I should have thrown him out while all these other wide receivers were there because he wouldn't have looked as good.
Yeah, by the time he came up, it was like, wow, so this guy's.
I should have been
really
more
good.
aggressive. That would be my one thing.
Yeah, that's I think we talk about that a lot. That's usually the key is try to be aggressive. You're aggressive enough though. You didn't sit around and wait where it hurt you. But I think being aggressive early is truly, and not like an overboard when you talk about Joe.
No.
He went crazy and spent all his money on. He has Christian McCaffrey and Justin Jefferson, but his bench is terrible.
Yeah.
But and not even just bench. The rest of it, his starters are terrible, other than a couple guys. But it's when you go aggressive early, I think you do well. And I did the same. I came in with a plan of, like I said, we can actually trade draft cash from future years in this league. So last year I traded $20. It's the max you can trade. So I started with, instead of a $200 budget, I only had a $180 budget.
Yeah.
So I'm the only one in the league that was like that. So I'm like, oh, I have to have a real plan here to get a couple big time guys. And my plan coming in was, I didn't love my keepers. I thought they were okay, but it was Debo and Calvin Ridley. I don't love Debo if you've heard this, but it was a $12 keeper and a $200 budget. I'm like, I don't have any better options. Let me lock in a guy who's hopefully my third-ish receiver. But I don't know if he is my third, but he might be, hopefully. But I'm like, I need some stars or at least a star. So I came in thinking, I didn't know if it was going to be what was going to be. It was Justin Jefferson possibly. Mm-hmm. It was going to be Nick Chubb possibly. I set myself like, okay, I'll go up to 65 for Chubb. I said I'd probably go to 60-ish for Jefferson and then see what happens. And Bijan would have been a backup plan to Chubb if Chubb got too out of control. But it's funny enough, I ended up with Nick Chubb, your must-have player from the other day.
Yeah, go figure.
So I ended up with Chubb for 61. So I got $4 under what I had told myself I was willing to go. So I was good with that. And then, like you said, I got Josh Allen because I wanted a quarterback this year. And funny enough, he went for exactly what I marked down on my sheet. So that's one thing. I came in with the spreadsheet of my prices on what I would do to at least give me a baseline. And Josh Allen I had for 25. That's what I was hoping I could pull it off, and I did for $25. So after that, I knew if I did that, I was gonna have to piece together the rest, and it's not gonna be great. But I wanted to at least get a starting lineup, and then I didn't worry about the bench. I have the most waiver moves in the league by far always, so it's going to change. But I got Ramondre Stevenson for 24. Even with the Zeke signing, I think that's a solid price. I think that's kind of baked into that where he goes there. $24. He was an RB1 last year. He was like our RB11. So
yeah, I think 24 is fine when you're looking at what other running backs were going for. Everyone was going for a lot.
So ended up with Stevenson. He was in a tier of players. So like he wasn't the target. Like Nick Chubb was my target as a running back with Bijan is a little bit less. Obviously it was Allen and Mahomes. Mm-hmm. Stevenson was in a group of probably 3-ish running backs. I can't remember now who all was on my list right now. Yeah. But he was in that group of guys I would like to go for, and he happened to be the one. I got really worried though because he was the last left.
Yep.
He was the last of the tier, but the bidding didn't get too crazy because it really would have dropped after him. And I was a little worried, but it didn't quite get there. The one guy I guess I missed out on, I'll say I missed out on a couple things. Well, then I had Terry McLaurin for 14. I'm okay with that. Drake London. Brandon Ayuk. I love Ayuk. He went for $11. So he went. It's not a bad price, but he went for $11 after I had already spent on Chubb and Allen. So I didn't have I'm like, I don't think I can go to 11 right now. I was hoping I could get him for like 6, and it just didn't work out. And then the only other one who the guy I like that is Khalil Herbert. And he was nominated really early, like the 5th or 6th nomination. And he only went for $5. If he's nominated later, he goes for way more. And that is sometimes you get those kind of guys, those later guys early. If you nominate them, you could get a deal.
I'm telling you, if you know you want them, like I knew I should have. And again, with Olave, I wasn't looking to get a deal. I was looking to pay market price for him, and I would have been very happy with that. I should have thrown him out earlier. And I think it's the same thing. Like the person that threw him out, it was James, right? So I believe he lives in Chicago. So he's a fan of him. So you probably would have he would have probably kept going a little bit. But at the same time, he went after a guy, and we talked about Khalil Herbert early on in the season.
I love Khalil Herbert.
And it's funny because depending on when you're drafting, it ebbs and flows of who you're thinking about, who you're willing to go after. But this is interesting because both of us said this, and it's very easy to be like, okay, what was your strategy? 0 RB, that's what I went for. But neither of us really started that way because we didn't want to lock ourselves in. We both knew that we wanted a QB because we wanted someone we could trust and we don't have to play that game every week. But we were very specific about not even a handful, like 3-4 guys that we wanted to see which one of those guys we could possibly get. And then we picked a strategy from there. And I find that very interesting for you. So if you didn't say Bijan was a little too much, we let him go. Chubb, you say he went for a little more than you were willing to go. He went for 66. You didn't get him. What would you have done with that cash at that point? Because you would have to pivot, and Chubb was early.
I think I would have spent it on Bijan. I would have had to.
Okay. Oh, I thought Bijan. Okay, I thought Bijan went.
He went.
Say Bijan went for a ridiculous amount too. You missed them both. So are you out of the running back game entirely, or would you where do you put all that money if you didn't get either of those guys? Say you panicked, you didn't go for Bijan or Chubb.
I think it.
Do you take a running back like Saquon you're not as hyped on, or do you put all that money towards the wide receivers?
I think I would have pivoted to receivers.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would have pivoted to receivers, but that's why I went into this knowing I want Chubb. First off, Jefferson is my one because we didn't have Chase, so it wasn't an option for us. Cup. There's a lot of guys. Chase, so not an option for me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, if Jefferson is the best player out there, it'd be great to get him. I'm not gonna go crazy, and then because if I would have done that, I would have been very, very weak at running back, but I would have been willing to do it for Jefferson. And then after that, I'm like, I want Chubb. He's so consistent. This is a standard scoring, so he's even better.
Yeah. Oh, he's great. There's no doubt about that.
And that's where I went. So I did. My strategy was I'm going to spend on these 2 running backs and get 2 guys I feel confident in. I still feel confident in Stevenson. Zeke doesn't really move the needle too much for me. But I knew at that point I'm not worried about my depth.
Yeah.
And I was not worried about depth at all at running back because I know it changes so much every year, and you never know who's going to break out and who's going to come off the waiver wire. So I did not worry at all. That was my whole plan was I'm going to get these 2, get the quarterback, get those 2 running backs, and then not worry about my running back depth at all. And you can see my draft, I got some guys that could have some upside. I went like with a Roshan Johnson. Maybe I got Jaylen Warren because maybe he takes some stuff away from Najee. Kenny Gainwell, that was actually a mistake. Again, that's for another episode. Maybe make sure you're on top of things because I actually clicked the wrong button. He's whatever. He'll be on the waiver wire soon. And then I got Damian Harris for $1 at the end of the draft because, hey,
because I wanted him and it was perfect. You kept enough money where
that's what I love to do. I kept just a little bit, not a lot. No. I ended up with 0
because I only had $1 and you could have outbid me.
Yep.
So I had to eventually and you put him up.
So what happened was I had a $2 max bid. Jeff, you only had a 1.
Yep.
You threw up Marvin Mims.
Oh, that's right.
Thinking you were
stole
get
him, and then
I
you
stole
got
him,
to
and then I
nominate,
had the next nomination.
And then you grabbed Harrison. I was like, wow, that went terribly.
I had the very next nomination.
Yeah.
So I had that. That's having a literally $1 more of a bid than anybody else at that point. I had 2. The other people left all had $1. So that was perfect because I liked Mims for potential there. So Jeff throws him out. I steal him and then get the next nomination. Didn't know you were going for Harrison, but I took him. So.
And I will say this right before we're done with this one, but because I went 0 RB, I thought the running backs I ended up with were really interesting because I'm really only looking to start 2 of these guys every week. I could start a third. But in order to make it work with the numbers, I had to take some risks or people that were suspended, hurt, whatever. So obviously I started with ETN. I got a deal on him. So take that with a grain of salt. But the next guy I got was Rachaad White, and I paid $20 for him, which may sound like a little bit much, but he was a starting running back. Everyone was going for a lot, and I wanted a guaranteed guy that I could pair with ETN to start the year. And then I got a discount on Kamara. So he went for 16. You know, I'm banking on the fact that after 3 games he's going to still be the starter, and then all of a sudden I have options with it, right? And then also I got a deal on Javonte Williams for $12. So I am banking on these guys being able to play. They don't have to be elite for me, but I'm a lot of upside for that. So I have 4 guys all of a sudden that have really high upside. 2 of them are healthy right away. I shouldn't have to worry about fielding a team. And then I got, Kendre Miller to see if he breaks out while Kamara's hurt. So it was one of those where I kind of went down that path. I thought there was an interesting way, and when I looked at my team, I was like, I like it, but I'm not banking on 3 of these guys to be in the starting lineup because I have a pretty good wide receiver core. So I thought that was an interesting one. I'll be very intrigued to see how that works out and if it gets annoying to try to pick which ones to start. But as far as that goes, it's cool.
No, but it's a good draft. Oh, and I throw one more. I threw Anthony Richardson on my bench for $2 because I like to throw. You don't know what he is.
Find out.
But yeah, it was fun. That was our first one down. We have one more big draft in a couple weeks, so it's good to have we have the first one in the books to prepare.
Have strategies, be able to pivot, be aggressive.
I felt comfortable the whole time because I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and you could be like James and end with $15 at the end of the day, and no good players really because you just.
Well, he has Olave. He took that from me.
Yeah, but he didn't have a plan. But all right, that'll do it for today. Talk to you guys next time.